There is a specific piece of paper that exists in the world right now. It is probably sitting in your wallet at this very moment.
Or maybe crumpled up in a pocket somewhere.
Exactly. And this piece of paper is accepted by every single government on Earth. It is hoarded by central banks in these massive subterranean vaults.
Drug cartels use it to settle debts in the middle of nowhere. People in, unstable economies stuff it into mattresses from Moscow to Mumbai just to feel safe at night.
It's arguably the most sought-after physical object on the entire planet.
I mean, wars have literally been fought over it. Empires have collapsed because they just couldn't get enough of it.
And yet, when you actually stop and look at it, I mean, really look at it, it's nothing.
Right. It's just a blend of cotton and linen with some green ink on it and a dead president's face. It has no intrinsic value. You can't eat it.
You can't build a house with it.
Nope.
But that green ink rules the world.
Yeah.
We are talking, of course, about the United States dollar.
The almighty dollar.
Welcome back to Daily New History. Today, we are going to trace the biography of this object. And I use that word biography very intentionally because the dollar has had a life. It has a personality.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't always this global titan that dictates the price of everything from oil to wheat.
Far from it. That's the thing people, they tend to forget. If you go back far enough, the American currency was a total disaster.
A joke, really.
A complete joke. It played second fiddle to the British pound for over a century. It nearly collapsed entirely in the 1970s. It has been hated, burned, counterfeited, and weaponized.
Now it makes up something like 60% of global reserves. It's the water the global economy swims in. So our mission in this conversation is to figure out how on earth that happened. How did we get from colonial chaos, where we were literally trading animal skins for supplies, to global hegemony?
And maybe the most important question for everyone listening right now, can it last?
It's a story of chaos, war, genius, and honestly,
a tremendous amount of luck.
A lot of luck. So let's go back.
Yeah.
Way back. Before the dollar was even a twinkle in Alexander Hamilton's eye.
Okay.
We are in the American colonies. We are British subjects. We drink tea. We bow to the king. So logic would dictate that we are using British money to buy our bread and pay our taxes, right? Pounds, shillings, pence.
You would absolutely think so. That would make the most sense. But that creates this massive logistical problem for the colonies.
How so?
Well, yes, they were British, but they were effectively broke when it came to actual British coins. The crown operated under this economic theory called mercantilism.
Right.
And the whole point of mercantilism was to keep gold and silver in London, not to let it leak out to the colonies.
So they weren't exactly shipping boatloads of coins across the Atlantic to help the colonists go shopping.
Not at all. In fact, they actively restricted the export of coins to America. They wanted the raw materials coming from America, and they wanted the colonists to buy finished British goods, but they did not want the colonies to have their own stockpile of wealth. So you have this vibrant, growing economy
that needs to trade, needs to buy and sell land, pay wages.
But there is literally no money to do it with.
What do you do? I mean, you can't just stop the economy.
You improvise. And the improvisations were absolutely wild. The colonists started using what we call substitute currencies.
And this wasn't just bartering, right? It wasn't like, I'll trade you my chicken for your shoes.
No. This was much more formal. These things became legal tender, recognized by the local courts.
The most famous one, of course, being wampum.
Right, the Native American shell beads. In the Northeast, specifically around New York and Massachusetts, that was legitimate currency.
You could pay your tuition at Harvard in wampum at one point, I read.
You could. But it gets weirder depending on where you lived. If you were up north, near the Canadian border, maybe you use beaver pelts.
Okay.
If you're in South Carolina, rice was money.
And if you were in Virginia...
Tobacco. The golden leaf. It was legal tender. You could pay your taxes in tobacco. You could pay court fines in tobacco.
The Anglican priests were even paid their annual salary in pounds of tobacco.
That's right.
There is this one anecdote about this that just blows my mind every time I hear it. It really illustrates how literal this was. We're talking 1619 in Jamestown.
Oh, the brides, yes. This is a crazy story.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. So Jamestown was, almost entirely men working the fields. There was a severe shortage of women in the colony to start families.
Right.
So the Virginia Company arranged for ships to arrive from England with women who were willing to marry the colonists. But of course, there was a cost for their passage across the Atlantic.
Someone had to pay the transport fee, basically.
Exactly. And the price was set at 120 pounds of tobacco.
Wow.
That was the cost of a wife. You literally weighed out the leaves, handed them over to the ship captain, and you were married.
It sounds completely barbaric to our modern ears, and obviously the gender dynamics are a whole other conversation. But purely from an economic standpoint, it illustrates just how functional this commodity money was.
Right.
It was a unit of account. Everyone knew what a pound of tobacco was worth at any given time.
But there is a massive problem with using crops as money, isn't there? I mean, aside from the obvious moral issues, money is supposed to be durable and uniform. Tobacco is, well, it's a leaf.
Huge economic problems. It introduces a concept that economists call Gresham's law. It's a fundamental rule of monetary history.
Okay.
Basically, the phrase is, bad money drives out good.
Okay, so let's unpack that. How does that apply to tobacco leaves in Virginia?
Well, imagine you are a farmer in Virginia. You've harvested your crop. You have 2 piles of tobacco in your barn.
Right.
Pile A is the high-quality, perfectly cured golden leaf. It smells great. It's going to smoke smoothly. Pile B is, well, it's the stuff from the bottom of the field. It's a little rotten, maybe got some bug bites. It's crumbly.
Okay, so I have my premium stash and my garbage stash.
Exactly. But the law says a pound of tobacco is a pound of tobacco when it comes to paying debts or taxes. So the tax collector comes to your door. Which pile are you going to weigh out for him?
I'm giving him the trash tobacco. Pile B every time.
Exactly. You act rationally. You keep the good stuff, the pile A, to export to London, where merchants will actually pay a premium for quality. And you circulate the garbage in the local economy.
So everyone starts doing this.
Right. Everyone hoards the good tobacco and spends the bad tobacco. So very quickly, the only money circulating in Virginia is this rotting, crumbling, low-quality trash.
The bad money has driven the good money out of circulation.
And that creates inflation, doesn't it?
It has to.
It does, because if I'm a shopkeeper and I know you're going to pay me in this rot gut tobacco, I'm going to raise the price of my shoes or my tools to compensate for the fact that the money you're giving me is terrible.
It literally rots. You can't save for retirement in tobacco leaves. You put them under your mattress, and in 10 years, you have dust.
Exactly.
So the colonies are this total mess of beaver skins, wampum shells, rotting leaves. It's just chaotic. But there was one coin that actually held value. The one coin everyone trusted, from Boston down to Savannah. And ironically, it wasn't British.
No, it was Spanish. The Spanish dollar, or the peso, or most famously, the piece of 8.
This is the pirate coin.
It is the pirate coin. But it was also the model for the future U.S. economy.
Yeah.
You have to remember, Spain controlled these massive silver mines in Mexico, and Peru Potosi being the big one. So they were minting these massive, high-quality silver coins that just flooded the Americas. They were everywhere.
And the name piece of 8 isn't just some cool name, right? It describes the actual physical mechanics of the coin.
Literally. The Spanish dollar was a big silver coin worth 8 reales, but small change was scarce.
Right.
So if you went to a tavern and bought a beer and it cost less than $1, the bartender wouldn't give you change from a register. He would take a hammer and chisel and physically chop the silver coin into 8 triangular slices, like a pizza.
Each slice was a bit.
Right. Each slice is 1 bit.
Which leads us to a phrase that my grandfather used to use, and I think we still hear it in old movies.
2 bits. If 8 bits is $1, 2 bits is $0.25. So when people say shave and a haircut, 2 bits, they are referencing a physical slice of a Spanish silver dollar equal to 25 cents.
That is just fascinating. So the dollar as a concept actually predates the United States. We kind of stole the idea from the Spanish because it was the only thing that worked.
We adopted it, let's say. It was the coin everyone knew.
Yeah.
If you said dollar in 1770, everyone knew you meant the Spanish coin.
Okay.
But then we get to the Revolution. 1775, the war starts. And now the Continental Congress has a massive problem.
War is incredibly expensive.
Incredibly. You need muskets, uniforms, food, wagons, wages for soldiers.
And the Continental Congress has absolutely no power to tax the people.
None. They are a revolutionary body. They aren't a government yet. They can't go door to door collecting silver, so they do the only thing they can do.
They look at the printing press in the corner.
Let's say, fire it up.
Enter the Continental.
The first true American currency. And it was, well, it was an absolute catastrophe.
How bad are we talking here? Are we talking like inflation is up a little bit, or are we talking wheelbarrow economics?
We are talking near total collapse. It is the textbook definition of hyperinflation.
Wow.
They printed about $200 million worth of these paper notes, but you have to understand, there was no gold or silver backing them. There was no tax revenue to soak them up.
It was just paper.
It was just paper and a promise that said, if we win the war, this will be worth something. If we lose, well, it's kind of nice wallpaper.
And as the war dragged on and the British won battles,
The value plummeted. By 1781, it took 100 continental dollars to buy what $1 bought in 1776.
100 to 1.
It got so bad that not worth a continental became a common insult in the American lexicon.
I've heard that phrase.
Yeah, if a horse was lame, it wasn't worth a continental. If a politician was corrupt, he wasn't worth a continental.
I can see why the Founding Fathers were so traumatized by this. You read the Constitution later, and they were incredibly specific about money. It wasn't just an administrative detail to them. It was a matter of national survival.
They were terrified of paper money. They saw it as a tool of fraud. They saw how it destroyed the savings of regular people who had accepted these notes in good faith.
Right.
That's why the Constitution gives Congress the power to coin money, implying metal, and explicitly forbids the states from making anything but gold and silver legal tender.
They wanted to tie the hands of the government to make sure the disaster of the Continental never, ever happened again.
Yeah, exactly.
So the war ends, the Constitution is ratified, but the financial situation is still grim. The U.S. is a debtor nation. Our credit rating is effectively zero, and there are 50 different currencies floating around.
A total mess.
Enter the man with the plan, Alexander Hamilton.
The first Treasury Secretary, and really the architect of the American economic engine. Hamilton looked at this mess of debt and chaos and said, we need to be a serious nation.
And to be a serious nation, in his mind, you need a serious bank.
Exactly. He proposed a national bank, the first bank of the United States. He wanted the federal government to assume all the state debts from the war, combine them into one big federal debt, and then pay them off to establish credit.
And he wanted a unified currency.
Yes, he wanted the U.S. to look like Britain financially.
But this wasn't a slam dunk. I mean, there was massive opposition. This is really where the two-party system begins.
Thomas Jefferson. He hated this idea. He and his allies looked at Hamilton's bank and they didn't see stability. They saw a European-style aristocracy.
What did they mean by that?
They thought a central bank would empower northern bankers and merchants in New York and Philadelphia at the expense of southern farmers. They wanted an agrarian republic, not a financial empire. They thought paper money and banking were basically just tricks to steal labor from the common man.
But Hamilton wins the argument.
He wins. 1791, the bank is chartered. And in 1792, we get the Coinage Act. This is the moment the U.S. dollar is officially born.
And they base it on the Spanish dollar, right?
Yeah.
They didn't try to reinvent the wheel.
Right. They defined the U.S. dollar as a specific weight of silver 371.25 grains, to be exact, which matched the Spanish coins people were already using.
And basically said, you know that Spanish coin you like? We're making our own version, same weight, same value.
Pretty much.
I love the detail about the design of those early coins. There was a debate about putting the president on the coin, right?
Yeah.
Like we do now with Washington and Lincoln.
And Washington absolutely refused. He was appalled by the suggestion. He said that was something monarchs did. Kings put their faces on coins to show they own the money. Presidents do not. So instead, they put Lady Liberty on the front, an abstract symbol of freedom, and an eagle on the back.
And it stayed that way for a long time.
Over a century, you didn't see real people on American money until much, much later.
So we have a bank, we have a dollar, things are stabilizing. But then, well, politics happens again. The charter for the first bank expires, and eventually we get a second bank. But then we run into a buzzsaw named Andrew Jackson.
The Bank War. This is one of the most dramatic moments in American economic history. Andrew Jackson, the populist hero, the general, absolutely despised the central bank. He called it the monster.
Why did he hate it so much? Was it just a personal thing?
It was ideological. He believed the bank was a corrupt institution that served the Eastern elites and screwed over the common man. He thought it gave too much power to unelected bankers.
He sounds pretty passionate about it.
He famously told the vice president, "The bank is trying to kill me, but I will kill it."
So when the bank comes up for renewal in 1832,
Jackson vetoes it. And he doesn't just veto it, he actively destroys it. He withdraws all the federal deposits from the central bank and spreads them out to various state banks.
which is critics called pet banks.
Right. He kills the central bank dead.
Which is incredibly ironic considering whose face is on the $20 bill today.
It is the ultimate historical trolling. The man who hated central banking more than anyone else in history, who spent his presidency trying to destroy paper money, is the face of the most circulated note from the Federal Reserve. He would be spinning in his grave if he knew.
So Jackson kills the bank. The monster is dead. What happens to the money?
We enter what historians call the free banking era. And if you think free banking sounds liberating and democratic,
I'm guessing it's not.
I think again, it was absolute chaos. From 1837 to 1863, there was no federal regulation. States just let anyone open a bank.
So I could just open the Bank of Cameron in my garage and start printing money?
Pretty much. If you could convince the state legislature to give you a charter, which usually just meant bribing the right people, you could print your own banknotes. And people did. There were over 8,000 different types of banknotes circulating in the U.S. during this time.
8,000.
Yes. You had notes from the Bank of Apopka, the Mechanics Bank, the Railroad Bank, the Butchers and Drovers Bank.
And the designs were all different.
All different. Some were red, some were blue, some had pictures of Santa Claus on them. I'm not kidding.
How on earth did you buy anything? If I walk into a store in New York with $1 from the Bank of Cameron in Ohio, how does the shopkeeper know it's real?
They didn't. That was the nightmare. Merchants had to subscribe to these massive books called counterfeit detection guides.
Like a phone book for money.
Exactly. You'd walk in, hand them a bill, and the shopkeeper would put on his glasses and start flipping through pages. He'd look up your bank, see a picture of what the note should look like, check for known fakes.
And even if it was real, was it worth $1?
Not necessarily. And here's the kicker. They would check the discount rate. $1 wasn't always $1. If your bank was solid and in a nearby city, maybe your dollar is worth 100 cents. But if your bank is some sketchy operation in the frontier territories, maybe that dollar is only worth 80 cents or 50 cents.
Wait, explain that mechanism. Why would a dollar bill be worth 50 cents?
Because the shopkeeper has to take that bill and eventually go to the bank that issued it to redeem it for gold or silver. If the bank is far away or if it's rumored to be broke, there is a risk and a cost associated with redeeming it. So the shopkeeper passes that cost on to you. Oh, this is a Bank of Cameron note. I'll give you 50 cents of credit for it.
This is where we get the term wildcat banks, right?
Yes. The joke was that some of these banks were located in such remote areas, only the wildcats lived there.
And that wasn't an accident.
No, it was by design. Scam artists would set up a bank in a swamp in Michigan, literally in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
They would print these beautiful banknotes, go to New York, buy luxury goods, and circulate the notes. But if you actually wanted to redeem that note for gold, you had to trek through the swamp, fight off mosquitoes and bears just to find a shack. They made it physically difficult to redeem the money so they wouldn't have to pay out the gold.
So commerce is a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what your money is worth. It takes 10 minutes to buy a loaf of bread because the baker has to look up your money in a book.
Total chaos.
But then the nation breaks apart. The Civil War hits in 1861.
And war, once again, forces innovation. The Union needs money. The costs are astronomical. The war eventually costs the North $3.4 billion.
Wow.
They try taxes, they try selling war bonds, but it's just not enough. The treasury is empty. They need to print money.
But they can't just do the Continental again. They can't just print worthless paper.
They have to be smarter. In 1862, Congress authorizes United States notes. And to distinguish them from all those chaotic state banknotes, they print the backs with a special, hard-to-counterfeit green ink.
The greenback is born.
This is the moment the dollar starts to look like the dollar we know. It is the first time we see a unified federal paper currency that looks the same whether you are in Maine or Minnesota.
But here's the crucial part, and the part that made bankers sweat. It was fiat money.
Explain that term for us. Fiat.
Fiat just means let it be done in Latin. It means the money has value because the government says it does. It wasn't backed by gold. You couldn't take a greenback to the treasury and trade it for a gold coin.
So it's backed only by what? A promise.
Only by the promise of the United States government and its ability to tax its citizens in the future.
And that value fluctuated with the war, didn't it? It wasn't stable.
Wildly. It was like a stock ticker for the Union Army. There was actually a gold room in New York where traders would bet on the price of gold versus greenbacks.
So if the Union won a battle?
If General Grant won a battle, confidence in the government went up and the value of the greenback went up. If the Union lost a bull run, the greenback crashed. At the lowest point in the summer of 1864, when things looked bleak, it took $2.80 in greenbacks to buy $1 of gold.
Wow.
The Civil War also gave us another institution that is inextricably linked to the dollar, the Secret Service.
Yes, created in 1865. And today we think of them as the guys in sunglasses talking into their wrists, protecting the president. But that wasn't their original job.
No.
Not at all. Lincoln created the Secret Service on the very day he was assassinated, actually. It was one of the last things he did. But their sole mission was to fight counterfeiting.
Because it was that bad.
It was so bad that it is estimated 1/3, 33% of all the currency circulating in the U.S. was fake.
1/3.
Imagine that. Every third bill in your pocket is just a piece of paper. The economy was on the brink of total collapse because nobody could trust the money, so the Secret Service was a financial police force.
Hunting down counterfeiters.
Exactly. They were there to restore faith in the paper. They didn't start protecting presidents until after McKinley was shot in 1901.
So the North wins the war.
Yeah.
We have a unified currency. We have a national banking system that taxed those wildcat banks out of existence.
Yeah.
But now we have a new battle.
The war is over, but the war over money is just heating up.
Right. What backs the dollar? This is the era of the gold standard.
The Battle of the Standards. This defined late 19th century politics. It was a class war disguised as a monetary debate.
Okay.
On one side, you had the bankers, the industrialists, the gold bugs in the East. They wanted the gold standard.
Why? What was in it for them?
Because gold is scarce. You can't just print it. That keeps inflation low.
Ah.
If you are a banker lending money, you want low inflation. You want to be paid back in money that is worth just as much as when you lent it out.
Makes sense. And on the other side?
The farmers, the debtors, the working class in West and South, they wanted silver. They wanted bimetallism. Basically, they wanted inflation.
Why would anyone want inflation?
If you owe money, inflation is your best friend. Imagine you are a farmer in Nebraska. You borrow $1,000 to buy a tractor.
Okay.
At the time, wheat is selling for $1 a bushel. So you need to grow 1,000 bushels to pay off your debt. But under the gold standard, money is tight. Prices fall. Deflation happens. Suddenly, wheat is only 50 cents a bushel.
Ouch. So now I have to grow 2,000 bushels to pay off the same debt.
Exactly. Your debt effectively doubled because the money became too valuable. That's why the farmers hated gold. They saw it as a tool of oppression used by Wall Street to keep them in debt forever.
This is the context for William Jennings Bryan in that famous speech.
The Cross of Gold speech. He stood up at the Democratic Convention in 1896. He was the voice of the populist, and he thundered, "You shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold."
Powerful stuff.
He was begging for silver to be included to expand the money supply and help the poor.
But he lost.
He lost. The Republicans won, and the Gold Standard Act of 1900 made it official. The dollar was defined as 23.22 grains of gold, period. The bankers won.
So we have stability, but we still don't have a central bank to manage things when it goes wrong.
And it went very wrong in 1907.
The panic of 1907.
This was the terrifying moment that changed everything. The stock market crashed, trust evaporated, and banks started collapsing like dominoes. People were lining up around the block to pull their money out.
And because there was no Federal Reserve, there was nobody to bail them out, there was no lender of last resort.
Except one guy. One man.
JP Morgan.
The man was so wealthy and had so much gravitational pull that he personally acted as the central bank. There's this amazing scene that really happened. He gathers the leading bankers of New York in his private library on 36th Street.
Set the scene for us.
It's opulent. Floor-to-ceiling books, tapestries, a roaring fire. Morgan is an old man by this point with that massive, bulbous nose and fierce eyes, and he locks the doors.
He literally puts the key in his pocket.
Yes. The air is thick with cigar smoke.
Yeah.
And he essentially tells these titans of industry, nobody leaves this room until we agree to pool our money and save the system.
He held them hostage to save the economy.
He sat there playing solitaire while they argued and panicked. Finally, at like 4 in the morning, they agreed. They pulled their funds, propped up the weak banks, and the panic stopped.
It worked.
It worked. But the politicians in Washington looked at the spectacle and said, we can't run a modern superpower like this. We can't rely on a geriatric billionaire playing solitaire to save us every time the market hiccups. What if Morgan dies?
But we need a system.
And that gives us the Federal Reserve in 1913.
Finally, a permanent central bank, a lender of last resort, a hybrid system, part public, part private, to manage the currency, control interest rates, and prevent panics.
Just in time, too.
Because a year later, the world catches fire. World War I begins.
And this is the pivot point. If you take one thing away from our whole conversation, it's this. War changes money.
How so?
Before 1914, the British pound sterling was the king. London was the center of the financial universe. If you were a bank in Brazil trading with a bank in Sweden, you did it in pounds. The dollar was a second-tier currency.
But WWI changes the flow of money entirely.
Drastically. Britain and France were fighting for their lives in the trenches. They stopped producing goods for export and started producing death. They needed food, ammo, steel, bandages. And where did they buy it?
The United States.
The neutral United States. And how did they pay?
Gold.
Massive amounts of gold. They shipped bullion across the Atlantic to pay for American wheat and steel. Before the war, the U.S. was a debtor nation. We owed Europe money. By the end of the war, we were the world's creditor. We held 40% of the world's gold reserves.
The center of gravity shifted from London to New York.
It did. The pound was wounded. It tried to make a comeback, but the dollar was now the heavyweight champion because it was backed by the biggest pile of gold in history and the biggest industrial base in the world.
Then comes the Great Depression, the ultimate stress test. And this leads to one of the most controversial moments in dollar history under FDR.
1933. FDR takes office. The banking system has collapsed. People are terrified, so they are hoarding gold coins under their floorboards.
Which is shrinking the money supply and making the Depression worse.
Exactly. So FDR does something unthinkable in a free country. He confiscates the gold.
He makes it illegal for an American citizen to own gold coins.
Executive Order 6102. You had to turn in your gold to the government. They paid you $20.67 an ounce in paper money. If you kept your gold, you faced a $10,000 fine or 10 years in prison.
And once the government had all the gold?
FDR pulled a fast one. Once the gold was in the vault, he devalued the dollar. He raised the official price of gold to $35 an ounce.
Wait, explain the math there. If I turned in my gold for $20 and then the government says it's worth $35.
The government instantly made a massive profit. And the paper dollars in your pocket were suddenly worth about 40% less in terms of gold.
It was a massive transfer of wealth.
It was, but economically it worked. It caused inflation, which is what they needed to break the deflationary spiral of the Depression. It showed that the government would manipulate the currency to save the economy.
But the real coronation of the dollar happens towards the end of World War II. We're talking about Bretton Woods.
The famous conference, 1944. A swanky ski resort in New Hampshire.
Paint the picture.
It's July. The war is still raging in Europe and the Pacific, but the Allies know they're going to win. So 730 delegates from 44 nations gather to design the post-war world. Keynes is there from Britain, the Soviets are there, and the U.S. holds all the cards.
We have the manufacturing, we have the gold, we have the army.
We have everything, so we dictate the terms. The British wanted a neutral global currency, but the U.S. said no.
Instead,
They built a system where every currency in the world, the French franc, the British pound, the German mark, was pegged to the U.S. dollar.
and the dollar.
The dollar was pegged to gold at $35 an ounce.
So it's a pyramid.
Exactly. Gold is at the top. The dollar is the only thing connected to gold, and every other currency connects to the dollar. This meant that if you were the Central Bank of France, holding U.S. dollars was as good as gold because you could technically always trade them for bullion.
This effectively makes the dollar the world's reserve currency. It becomes the baseline for everything.
It does. It creates enormous stability. Trade booms. Europe rebuilds. But there is a flaw in this system, a mathematical ticking time bomb known as the Triffin dilemma.
The Triffin dilemma. This sounds like a Robert Ludlum novel. What is it?
It's a paradox identified by an economist named Robert Triffin, basically. To be the global reserve currency, the U.S. has to supply the world with dollars.
Okay.
We have to run trade deficits, buying stuff from other countries and sending them dollars, so there is enough liquidity for global trade.
So dollars flow out of the U.S. to Japan, to Germany, to France.
As the gold stays in Fort Knox,
I see the problem.
right? The pile of dollars outside the U.S. keeps growing, but the pile of gold inside the U.S. stays the same. Eventually, by the 1960s, there are way more dollars circulating in Tokyo and London than there is gold to back them up, if everyone asks for their gold at once.
The bank breaks.
And the French figured this out. Charles de Gaulle, he was a proud nationalist, and he was not a fan of what he called America's exorbitant privilege.
Okay.
He realized the U.S. was basically printing paper to buy French factories and fight the Vietnam War. So in 1965, he decides to call America's bluff. He demands gold for his dollars. He literally sends French naval vessels to New York to pick up bullion and ship it back to France.
And other countries start doing the same. The run on the bank is starting.
The gold is bleeding out of Fort Knox. And Richard Nixon has to make a choice. If this continues, America runs out of gold.
So we get to the weekend of August 13th, 1971.
The Nixon shock. The secrecy here was intense. Nixon summoned his top economic advisors to Camp David. He told the press it was just a regular weekend trip.
But inside, they were debating dismantling the entire global financial system.
Exactly. They knew if word leaked, the markets would crash instantly. They worked through the weekend, and on Sunday night, August 15th, Nixon interrupts Bonanza, one of the most popular shows on TV, to address the nation.
And he drops the bomb.
He announces he is closing the gold window. He suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold.
This is a huge moment, maybe the biggest in monetary history. For thousands of years, money was metal, or a claim on metal. For the first time, the world's reserve currency is backed by nothing.
Nothing but trust. It became 100% fiat currency, the anchor was cut, and immediately chaos ensued.
The dollar tanked. Inflation skyrocketed. The 1970s became a nightmare of stagflation.
This is where the dollar nearly died. I think people forget how bad it was. Inflation hit 13, 14, 15% a year.
That's terrifying. If you had savings, they were just dissolving.
People were losing faith. And if people lose faith in a fiat currency, it goes to zero.
Yeah.
See? Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Weimar, Germany, the U.S. was staring into that abyss.
We needed a hero, or maybe a villain, depending on your perspective. We needed Paul Volcker.
The giant. Literally, he was 6'7". He smoked cheap cigars and wore rumpled suits. He becomes Fed chair in 1979. And he decides to kill inflation no matter the cost.
What did he do?
He raised interest rates to the moon. Today, we panic if rates go to 5%. Volcker took the federal funds rate to 20% in 1981.
20% interest. Imagine trying to get a mortgage today at 20%.
It would destroy the housing market. And it did. It crushed the economy. Farmers went bankrupt in droves. Unemployment spiked to 10%.
People must have hated him.
Oh, they were so angry they sent him coffin lids in the mail. Home builders sent him 2x4s with angry messages written on them.
Yeah.
But it worked.
How?
High interest rates suck money out of the economy. It becomes too expensive to borrow, so businesses slow down, people stop spending, and prices stop rising. He induced a severe recession to break the back of inflation.
He proved that the U.S. Federal Reserve would protect the value of the dollar, even if it meant causing pain.
That restored the trust.
But there was another piece of the puzzle that saved the dollar in the 70s. A geopolitical masterstroke. The petrodollar.
This is crucial. After the gold window closed, the dollar needed a new purpose. We made a deal with Saudi Arabia in the mid-70s.
The terms were simple.
Very simple. The U.S. would provide military protection and sell weapons to the House of Saud. In exchange, the Saudis agreed to price their oil exclusively in U.S. dollars.
This is brilliant. Every country needs oil.
Exactly. If you are Japan, you need oil. To get oil, you need dollars. So you have to sell Toyotas to America to get dollars to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. It created a permanent artificial demand for U.S. dollars. Even if you hate the U.S., if you want energy, you have to hoard dollars.
This replaced gold as the anchor of the currency.
It did. And the Saudis did something with those dollars too, right? This petrodollar recycling.
Yes. The Saudis were swimming in cash. They took those dollars and invested them back into U.S. Treasury bonds.
So the money flowed from the U.S. to Saudi Arabia for oil.
And then back to the U.S. government to fund our debt. It was a perfect loop that cemented American dominance for another 50 years.
And God help you if you try to sell oil and something else.
Oh, well, it is interesting to note the correlation. Saddam Hussein started selling Iraqi oil in euros in 2000. Shortly after, the U.S. invaded.
Right.
Muammar Gaddafi in Libya was pushing for a gold dinar to trade oil across Africa. He was overthrown. Now, I'm not saying that was the only reason for those conflicts, but
threatening the petrodollar system is a good way to get on America's bad side.
So that brings us to the modern era. The dollar is weaponized now in a different way. We use it for sanctions.
This is the modern superpower because almost all international banking touches New York, specifically the SWIFT system. The U.S. has a chokehold. We can turn off the tap.
The nuclear option of finance.
It is. We can lock countries out of the global financial system. We did it to Iran. We did it to Russia after the Ukraine invasion. If you get cut off from dollars, you can't buy medicine, you can't sell your exports, your economy freezes.
But it comes with a risk.
What's the risk?
Overuse. Every time you use the dollar as a weapon, you scare other countries. China looks at Russia and says, whoa, if we invade Taiwan, they could seize our assets too.
Right. It gives them a massive incentive to build an alternative system, to de-dollarize.
Which brings us to the competitors. Is there a real threat? People talk about the demise of the dollar all the time.
There are contenders, but they all have warts. Take the euro. It was created to rival the dollar. It's huge, about 20% of global reserves. But the euro has a fatal flaw. It's a currency without a country.
Explain that.
It has a monetary union, one central bank, but no fiscal union. There is no United States of Europe treasury. So when Greece goes broke, Germany argues about paying for it. That political fragmentation scares big investors. When a crisis hits, they still run to the dollar.
What about China? The yuan. They are the manufacturing powerhouse now.
They want to challenge the dollar. They are making deals to buy oil in yuan, but they have a huge hurdle. Capital control.
Yeah.
You can't just move money in and out of China freely. The Communist Party controls the flow. If you are a billionaire, you don't want your money stuck in a system where the government can just freeze it on a whim. In fact, rich Chinese people spend a lot of time trying to get their money out of China and into dollars.
So until they have rule of law and open markets, they can't replace the dollar.
Not really.
And crypto? Bitcoin?
It's the philosophical challenger. It was born out of the 2008 financial crisis as a protest against money printing. But right now, the crypto market is actually heavily reliant on stablecoins, like Tether and USDC, which are tokens pegged to the dollar. So in a weird way, the growth of crypto is currently increasing the demand for dollars.
So let's bring this back to the listener.
Yeah.
Why does this all matter to the guy driving to work right now? Or the woman listening while she makes dinner?
It matters because the Federal Reserve is the most powerful institution in your life that you didn't vote for. When the Fed raises rates to protect the dollar, your credit card bill goes up, your car loan gets more expensive, the housing market freezes.
And inflation is the silent tax.
Precisely. We talked about the tobacco rotting. Dollars rot too, just slower. The history of the dollar is a history of devaluation. A dollar today buys about 4% of what a dollar bought in 1913.
Wow.
If you keep your savings in cash under a mattress, you are losing money every single year. You are forced to become an investor just to stay standing.
And for our European listeners, we have a lot of fans in the UK and Germany.
You are on the other side of the seesaw. When the U.S. raises rates, it sucks capital out of Europe. Investors move their money to New York to get that higher yield.
Which weakens the euro or the pound.
Right. And because energy is priced in dollars, when the dollar gets strong, your gas and heating bills get more expensive. We effectively export our inflation to you. As the old saying goes, the dollar is our currency, but it's your problem.
Before we wrap up, we have to talk about the physical object again. There are some weird things about bills.
Like the $2 bill. People hoard them because they think they are rare.
Are they?
No, you can walk into any bank and ask for them. The Treasury still has millions of them. But because people think they're rare, they don't spend them, so you never see them. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And the $100 bill? The Benjamins.
This is fascinating. The $100 bill is the most circulated note by value. There are more hundreds than ones. But most of them, something like 80%, are not in the United States.
Where are they?
They are in Russia, Argentina, Southeast Asia. They are the global underground currency. If you are in a country where the local money is collapsing, you save in Benjamins. It is the ultimate store of value for the black market.
And the counterfeiting never stopped, did it?
No. The North Koreans are famous for this. They produced the super note. It's a fake $100 bill that is so perfect, same paper, same ink, same magnetic strip, that even bank machines can't spot them.
It's a form of economic warfare.
It is. The U.S. actually had to redesign the $100 bill with that blue 3D ribbon specifically to stop the North Korean fakes.
So let's unpack this whole journey. We started with tobacco leaves and wampum. We printed worthless continentals. We fought political wars over gold and silver. We locked bankers in a library. We severed the gold link and went fiat. And now we have a digital hegemony where a keystroke in Washington can cripple an economy in Asia.
It is a remarkable journey. And the biggest takeaway is that money is a social construct. It's a shared hallucination. It works because we all agree it works.
The dollar is backed by aircraft carriers. And the U.S. economy, yes, but mostly.
Mostly, it is backed by the belief that the United States will pay its debts and enforce the rule of law.
But history teaches us one thing.
No currency reigns forever. The Spanish dollar is gone. The British pound lost its crown. The dollar is facing $34 trillion in national debt, and a world that is becoming more divided.
It won't last forever.
Nothing does.
That is a sobering thought. Trust is the only real backing.
It is. And trust is hard to gain, but very, very easy to lose.
I'm Cameron.
And I'm Ava.
This has been Daily New History. We'll see you on the next one. Next time you pull out $1, remember,